Want to up your persuasion and influence game? In this interview, you're going to learn how a record-breaking salesman became so good. Keep watching. This is Life Mastery Gym. I'm Damon Cart, and I teach people just like you processes and techniques to help you master your life and take charge of your destiny. So if that sounds good, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. Never heard of Jason Fladlien? Well, he created a system which brings together all of the sales techniques and processes that I've ever come across and more, including NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, persuasion and influence techniques. He brought all of these processes together and organized them in such a way to create a sales process that pretty much can't fail. Now, he created webinars, or he created a system for generating sales through webinars. And not only did he create a system around that, he broke records. He holds the record for the most sales or the most revenue made from a single webinar, which means he cracked $10 million off of one webinar. I wanted to know his secret, so I got this interview with him. And by the end of this interview, you're going to understand so much better how to persuade and influence. And make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video because I'm going to show you how to get even more. Find out what I mean. A month ago, I did not know who you were. And then suddenly, like, I feel like you're inundating my life. I have you in my head like a coach, just giving me good advice on sales, persuasion, influence, and marketing. So welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on.
Damon, thanks for having me here.
Great. All right. So let's get started with a little bit about your background from basically just listening to other interviews that you've done and reading your book, One to Many. I've learned that you're from Iowa, right?
That's right. I grew up, first 30 years of my life, I lived in Iowa, a small town on the river, the Mississippi River.
And originally you wanted to be a rapper, and now you've gone from rapper to breaking records in online webinar sales.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's I've never heard it put that way, but that's absolutely correct. Tried to make records, made a record, rap record. It didn't do anything. But yeah, now we're break records. We don't make records. But yeah, that's how I got into marketing. So I wanted to be like a famous hip hop artist, and I just couldn't figure that out. So I started studying how do I become successful with my record label that I'd created with my album, selling units and all that kind of stuff. And I just was like, wow, this consumer psychology stuff is more fascinating to me than the music. And so then I just dove into that, and then we built a marketing business.
So how did you really just get into sales? I know you are associated with or were at one time, Zig Ziglar's company. And like I guess one of the things that was so refreshing, I don't know if you remember me walking up to you at the Traffic and Conversion Summit, but I went to see your presentation, and what was so refreshing about it is I kept seeing so many presentations where, and this was part of a problem that I've been dealing with in digital marketing, is hiring people, and it's just not working. And then I went to your presentation, and this is what I told you when I walked up to you. It was like, I couldn't believe you put like everything I've ever learned in sales in persuasion and influence into your presentation and into how you create webinars. And for me, it put the pieces together. It was like digital marketers often don't have sales training, and are not treating their marketing as one-to-one sales, which is what you do. And it was like, finally, now I understand it. So yeah, how did that all come about?
It's a great question, because to me, sales is the root of everything that we do. And I think a lot of digital marketers don't get into it because they avoid it. They say, well, let's just go impersonal since I'm so scared of the personal. So they double down on the impersonal side of things, which is unfortunate, because at the end of the day, I don't care if it's a subscriber list on YouTube or an email list. They're all people that make that list up, and all people are motivated by this connection and the intimate. If we can duplicate sales on a mass level, but still keep that heartfelt connection of sales, I think we have an advantage there. So here I got into sales. It was interesting because I never wanted to be a salesperson, but I would go to the library. So when I was starting to learn business, because I wanted to get my record label off the ground, I just go down to the library. I lived in a college town, Iowa City, for the University of Iowa. I'd go to this library, great library, and they had all these business books and all these sales books. I think it was like the Dewey Decimal was like 300 and something or whatever. And I made a goal. I said, in 1 year, I'm going to read every single book, or at least try to read every book. If it sucks, I'll quit reading it. But if it's good, I'll keep reading it. And I went through every book in a year, and there was only 3 books that stood out to me as being like the best. And one of those was Zig Ziglar's Secrets of Closing the Sale, which was written like in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was all about selling pots and pans for the most part, door to door. But I was like, God, these techniques are so powerful, and they're so effective. So what I did is I would write a close. So Zig would teach a close in the book, and I would write it down on a 3x5 note card. So I would condense it if need be, or fill it up if I had to, and that would be my card. And every day I made this goal that I'm going to memorize one of these closes. And so in 6 months, you can memorize 180 closes. And that's essentially all I did. And now I had no plan on selling one-to-one. I didn't have anything to sell, but I figured this was the root of persuasion, of understanding at the micro level what makes people say yes or no. And I internalized that. And then along the way, I was like, okay, with technology the way it is today, we don't have to go door to door. Nobody wants to go door to door. Nobody even opens their doors to strangers anymore. It's a whole different time. How do we use the internet to make this a more impactful messaging, but keep that personal connection? So I was able to adjust these closes from a one-to-one situation into a one-to-many situation. And they're minor adjustments, but they make all the difference in the world. So, you know, we were at Traffic and Conversion, and I was speaking, and you saw my presentation. There was a point during that presentation where I singled a guy out, and I said, I want you to commit to me that a big problem in your life 6 months from now, you'll have it solved. Don't even tell me what the problem is, but just commit to me, and then commit to the audience. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
I made that guy commit to 500 people in the audience to solve a problem that he wouldn't share with us. And that 6 months from now, he would report back to me that the problem was solved. And then I said, how confident do you feel that you're going to solve this problem? And he's like, totally confident. And that's just a sales technique. But by demonstrating that connection in an audience, I was able to break this fourth wall and connect at a deeper level. But yeah, you're right. People are so into the analytics. They're so into funnels and whatever. They forget it's like we are moving people at the end. Now, we might move 1 million people, or we might move one person, but even 1 million people are made up of one person. So to me, sales is the bedrock. It's the foundation of all you do in business. And even better, Damon, because I'm a big game theory fan, is if nobody else is doing it and I'm the only one doing it, what kind of advantage do I have? So that's the other reason I like it, is because it gives me an edge. It gives me more leverage to help my audience than somebody else trying to go after that same audience, because I might know the techniques they know, but I also have additional techniques that they don't know.
Right. And to me, it was like sort of waking up to the obvious solution that's been around, not just since the beginning of like door-to-door sales. I mean, what you're talking about is human nature. Like that's never going to change. And so it's how do you plug that into the internet, which surprisingly hasn't really, I don't see it. I mean, you're the first person I've seen doing, I'm not saying that you are the first, but you're the first person I've seen do that. And
we certainly take it to the highest level that it's ever been, which is nice.
yeah. And so when I saw your presentation, I was like, oh, this is a game changer. Like for me, this changes the game. And ever since I got back home from San Diego, I got your book, which was very generous. You were giving the books away at your booth. I was like, I'm getting one regardless. So I snatched one up. I got a poster, and I hung that poster up, and I look at it, and I'm internalizing the content. And then I've got your training, and every step of the way, like it's just, I would say it's like hand grenades of knowledge and awakening just sort of exploding, because it's like, yes, this is how it all fits together, which then brings me to, and early on in your book when I was reading it, and by the way, I want to, I got it right here. I'll show it real quick. This is a book, about creating webinars that convert, but I got to say it's probably the best sales book I've ever read. I mean, even if you're not, and I've read a lot of NLP books, and that's what I'm going to get to next. But even if you're not creating webinars and you're just in sales, this book is amazing because of the way that you organize it, the way that you bring, like, when you're in sales training, you learn like this thing here, language patterns there, cognitive biases over there. The way you bring this together is absolutely amazing. It's like it's like a can't fail. Like the person almost has to be asleep if they're not going to buy from you. It's absolutely amazing. And early on when I was reading the book, I was like, this guy has studied NLP. I'm not saying that everything you do is NLP, but you definitely have studied NLP. And then you mentioned Milton Erickson. I was like, I knew it. And then gradually you brought up ecology. Now, my YouTube channel used to be called NLP Gym.
Oh, wow.
I used to only focus on NLP. And then I broadened it to Life Mastery Gym because I wanted to talk about other subjects.
Right.
So tell me how you got into NLP, who you studied from, what is it? How has it changed the way that you think, the way that you do sales, persuasion, and influence?
So I mean, I just love NLP to death. I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people misappropriate it or don't quite understand what NLP is. NLP is a technology, nothing more, nothing less. And
Agree.
ideally, it was built around psychology to help people in a therapeutic setting. And then people have tried to apply it in influential situations and persuasion areas, but unfortunately, most of them do a very poor job of it. And so I got into NLP because when I first started working in the online business, I was running into overwhelm and blocks and procrastination, and I didn't like that. I was like, how do I just continue to just kick butt every single second of the day? So I started getting these like paraliminal binaural beats audios. I don't know how I came across them. So I would listen to one for like 15 or 30 or 40 minutes. And then once I would lag, I'd get tired. I'd be working 3 or 4 hours intensely and I'd be burnt. I would listen to one of these for 30 minutes and then I'd go back and hit another 3 or 4 hours. And, Paul Scheele, I believe, was the guy I was listening to. And he was also an NLP practitioner. So, I go down the rabbit hole and I always try to go to the root. So the root at the time was Bandler. Richard Bandler was essentially the most vocal. John Grinder was with him as well. So I started studying Bandler, and then I started studying the people that Bandler really formed the basis of NLP around, which was Erickson, Virginia Satir, Fritz Perl, some people like that. And what they were able to do, I think that a lot of people miss this, even Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins everything Tony has done has essentially been a foundation in NLP.
Exactly.
And I've worked with Tony Robbins, and it's funny because he's the best executioner of NLP I've ever seen in my life. But I noticed that a lot of people were using NLP on others, but not on themselves. And I thought, if this technology is really good, why don't I just do NLP on myself? And then if I get really good on doing it on me, maybe I'll do it on other people as well. Because, if there's techniques in NLP, everybody wants to do it on somebody else. And I don't understand that, because it's like, to me, the best edge of NLP is to do it on myself. So, they'd go and they'd study Erickson, and Erickson was able to take somebody who for 50 years was stuck and could not move forward with whatever they were trying to solve, and he could do it in one session. And I thought, wow, how did he do that? So what am I stuck with? Let me put something to the test and let me see what happens. And they talk about like ready states in NLP. How do you put yourself instantly in a state where you're just on? And I thought, well, forget doing that for other people. Let me just make sure I can do it for myself first. And I did. And that was really powerful. So to me, NLP was all about modeling. So if I can model the outcome I wanted and get there as fast as possible, that was fantastic. But what was really great is I started being able to build models for other people. And so what you've seen at my presentation, Damon, is I literally built a model for a compulsion towards success in the audience without them being aware of it. So I didn't directly say, I'm going to build this model. You're going to be more successful and more desired and driven when you're done with this here in this presentation. I didn't do any of that. I just, underneath everything I was teaching, was building a model of compulsion. And that's why certain people that are awakened can have that effect where they're motivated in a new way they weren't before. And I started noticing things. So to me, it's all about the outcome. If I can help a client get a better result, that's the best marketing I could ever hope to get, because that client will tell everybody about me. That client will have success stories that I can use in my own marketing, and success is undeniable. Anybody can be perceptively successful, meaning that they can pretend that what they're doing is good. But where does the rubber meet the road? And so, like a reframe on failure, for example. I often ask my clients, how can you fail your way and still make the money that you want? How can you, what do you want to make this month? And they say $10,000. I say, cool. How do you fail your way to making $10,000 instead of how do you succeed? If I feel like the person's scared of failure. And then they start thinking, wow, how do I fail my way? And I say, listen, I don't want you to make $25,000 this month, because the goal is to only make 10. I don't want you to be successful. I want you to fail. So we're not fighting and resisting. If we're fighting against something, then it pushes back. If we're working towards it, that's fantastic. So when I help people realize the outcome they want anyway, because nobody comes to me and say, don't do that thing to me, Jason. I don't want that outcome, and I don't force an outcome they don't want on them. What they're saying is, Jason, I've been beating my head against the wall, trying 1,000 times, spending $10,000 trying to get this outcome. And even though I want it so desperately, it's eluded me. So I help them get there by overcoming or just sidestepping really the issues that prevent them from getting that. And so to me, NLP is the most effective way to do that, but go first. So I studied NLP, applied it to myself, benefited from it. And then I was able to holistically just kind of just smatter it into everything that I do. Every form of communication is just laced with NLP. As one person said that to me, that they said, it's shredded and laced with NLP. And I thought, okay, cool. That's great. Because to me, it's all about the outcome. So how do we get somebody from point A to point B faster, quicker, easier than anybody else that they can go after? So NLP is a big part of that.
That was amazing. I'm so glad we got this recorded because, yeah, I'm so aligned with that. I mean, some of the exact same things that you're saying, that's what I tell people. It's like, you know, I see the exact same things that I've taught NLP for years. It's like, are you doing it on yourself? Can you influence your own behavior? If not, how far do you think you're going to get in influencing others? Like,
yeah, so some people are just seduced by the technology.
True. Yeah.
It's like they like, you know, I liken it to they read the dictionary to recite definitions, but they don't know how to string together sentences. And so let's not get seduced by the technology. Let's figure out the practicality and the usefulness of it. But, you know, I spent years just living in submodalities in my own head. And that's fun, man. I mean, what a beautiful world it is inside your own head. So it's like, if I can learn how to manipulate my own submodalities, it almost becomes automatic. If I'm going to look at your submodalities, I can almost see them without even asking you or eliciting them from you. But that's just, it becomes natural. And that's how NLP should be. You shouldn't have to think it through. It just becomes an automatic reflex if you want to help somebody with the outcome that ultimately I hope you do, because otherwise it's a lot harder if you don't.
Indeed. There's something you said in your presentation that as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, I like perked up. I was like, I want to hear more what this guy has to say. It was where you hooked me. And that's when you said something, and I'm probably not going to say it right. So, you know, please reword it for me here, but something along the lines of, education only happens when behavior changes, and in this case, it's a sale. You know, it's like that's, you know, you can say, oh, well, I've learned something, but if you haven't changed your behavior, it hasn't quite, you haven't really learned anything. And I absolutely love that. I mean, when you said that, I was like, okay, I'm on board. Sign me up.
So it's my belief, it's my fundamental philosophy that education without behavior change means no education actually occurred. So you can intellectually understand something, but if it doesn't transform how you behave, I would say that you're no better off than you were before you learned it. In fact, you're probably worse off, because now you know yet another way that you're not doing something that you should be doing. You know, the choice fatigue is what they call this in psychology. So if I give you 16 ways to do something, now you have 16 ways to feel bad about not doing the thing you're supposed to be doing. So in that case, information and education is actually a disadvantage, not an advantage. So I measure behavior change as, was I successful at teaching you something or not? And so if I teach you how to do webinars, for example, if I teach you how to build a marketing campaign, and then you just continue to do the same thing you've always done, I have failed you, or you have failed me, or we failed each other. And so once we change the definition of, I'm going to teach to change behavior, I think we become much more effective. Because,
as you probably realize, this video is only an excerpt from a bigger interview that I did with Jason, which lasted about an hour and a half. And in the rest of the interview, he goes on further to reveal more and more of his secrets on persuasion and influence, and basically closing that sale, getting that behavioral change. So how do you get your hands on the rest of this interview? I actually have a Life Mastery membership. When you enroll in this Life Mastery membership, not only do you get tons of amazing content where I'm teaching processes and techniques, I also interview experts, people who have mastered a certain area of their life. So imagine getting an expert interview like this one every single month with an expert who has mastered some particular area of life. So how do you get in on this? How do you get your hands on this? At the time that I've uploaded this video, my membership program enrollment is not open, but it's actually opening quite soon. I'm not giving out the date just yet, but it will be opening soon, and you can get on the wait list, and I urge you to get on the wait list, because when this thing opens, there are going to be so many goodies to get your hands on that you will want to make sure that you're the first to know. And the enrollment doesn't stay open all the time. I only open enrollment for short periods of time, only a few times throughout the year. All of us have areas of our lives in which we would like to master, especially the major areas of our life like finance, relationships, our social life. So what other life experts, life masters would you like to hear from? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to get on the waiting list for my Life Mastery membership so that you can get your hands on some of amazing content like the full interview that I do with Jason. If you found this video helpful, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the bell so that you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Also, if you like this video, click that like button. That just tells me that you want more videos like this one. Take care.